Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Vault Podcast. We're at thevaultreviews.com. If you haven't already checked us out there, send us an email, thevaultmusic1@gmail.com. We're on Twitter at thevaultmusic1, and of course Facebook, facebook.com/thevaultrvws. That's thevaultrvws. Also, check us out on YouTube. We got a YouTube page up with all of our past shows on it, and hopefully down the road some more video content. We're back for part 2 of the Greg Vance interview. Greg Vance, the drummer from Enfold Darkness. If you didn't already check out the first part, go back and check it out now. In part 2, we talked a little bit of bro country, music industry, and just all about Enfold Darkness, and talk a little bit more black metal in this episode. Little Dimmu Borgir and Cradle of Filth. That's kind of entry black metal bands that got a lot of people into the genre in the first place. Greg also let us know about his top 5 bands that influenced him towards, just getting into music. So, here you go. Here's part 2. Yeah, we're kind of in that same boat. On our last podcast, we were talking about that. Like, you go to these shows, especially the ones with mixed crowds, which that's actually my favorite ones, where you get, it's like a bill with like 6 bands on it, and you get a band from like each genre, something totally different. But the problem is when you get those groups together, it's like you said, you have those little cliques, and there ends up always being a problem. But like you get, like when Cannibal Corpse played in Springfield, that place was packed. It was nothing but metalheads, and it was completely crazy. But I don't remember having any issues with anything because nobody cared. They were all there for the music.
Yeah. I mean, you had people coming in from work wearing their uniform. Like it just, I don't know, man. I think it's definitely a younger mindset. Now that I've gotten older, I'm in my mid-20s, I kind of see it as almost immature to judge people on what they wear to concerts. It's, and shows and stuff. It's just, who gives a shit, Like, you're there for the music, and, by all means, buy the merch. That's what it's there for, is to help the band get to the next show and stuff. But you don't got to go out of your way to it's almost like a beauty pageant. Like, it's like a competition for some kids.
Oh yeah, and if you go to a show, like I've been to a couple of rap shows, and I walked in there with like some metal shirt on and a pair of jeans, and man, I get looked up and down because I'm not totally thugged out, but I was there to actually check out the bands, and it's just a super uncomfortable situation.
Did they buy tickets to see your outfit, or did they buy tickets to see the bands? Like,
Yeah, exactly. Next question would be, and this is might be a little bit hard, but what is your favorite and least favorite genres of music, and why?
I'm very open to a lot of genres of music. There's not really too many that I hate. I would just say that I think that this whole dubstep scene has gotten a little out of hand, where it's like, man, anyone with a laptop can, it's funny because I've actually messed around with that stuff just because it's easy to sit back and be like, oh, that's easy, but just messed around with it a little bit myself, and it's just, I don't know, man, it's just overly saturated, and I feel like the true talent in any type of electronic music will get totally overlooked by all of these sirens and screeching noises and crap that's just quantized to a beat. You know what I mean? Like, some of it is absolute garbage, and then like I said, I'm sure there's some good stuff out there. Like I know for a fact that there's some decent electronic music out there. But another thing is, I'm sure there's good rap and hip hop out there. There's some of it that I can enjoy listening to. But I work with some guys who are really, really into hip hop, and they're my buddies and stuff, and we'll get on these long talks about influence and who's a musical genius and crap. And it really, man, just the fact that it's so oversaturated, and like hip hop is like the new, like, rock and roll, from like, it's the mainstream, like that's just what sells these days. I just feel like a lot of people are losing touch with what good music is,
I don't know why I didn't think about it till just now, but would you almost consider the rap going on right now kind of like the hair bands were in the 80s?
I mean, you could definitely compare it like that. I mean, there's definitely like some thrash bands that were going on at that time that were just like, man, this is making us look like assholes, And I have buddies that are hip hop artists. I have a buddy from Missouri named Loogie. my buddy Trackmaster Tom from Springfield, Missouri, my buddy Nate here in Nashville. He goes by the name Illuminate. But these are all dudes who, they grew up listening to hip hop like I did metal, and they actually care about it, and they try to do good stuff with it. They're not just out there doing, what Kanye West does and just doing publicity stunts to get attention. Like that's, man, it's just a lot of it's just garbage to me. But on a lighter note, I will definitely say that some of my favorite genres. I'm a big prog guy, man. Like some people think that prog's super lame, but Opeth's, I'd probably say my favorite band. Just because each album's so different, and it's not one directional. Like whenever you first listen to an Opeth record, you don't really know what to expect, and it kind of takes you on a journey, and it's kind of that whole thing like how Zeppelin was whenever they came out, was people didn't really know what they were doing because it was original, and I think that anything that's original, whether it's death metal, black metal, grindcore, rock and roll, hip hop, rap, electronica, trance, whatever, as long as you're coming from an honest place, a humble place, and a place of inspiration, then it's probably going to be pretty good,
Yeah, I totally agree. And you're talking about the prog stuff. I love that stuff. But I prefer the really old stuff like King Crimson and Genesis and Yes. Like that stuff is really out there. I think my only complaint would be like sometimes if the song's like 20 minutes long and you've got that space in there where it's just kind of weird dead space. It's a little annoying. But do you like any of that older stuff?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot of that stuff out there. I don't really go out of my way to find new like prog music or anything, but Metropolis Part 2 by Dream Theater is, I would say, one of my favorite prog records. And there's this band called Pain of Salvation. They're a lot of people can't overlook the cheesiness of some of the prog stuff, but whenever you're going for a certain, I'll give you a good example, like in Metropolis Part 2 by Dream Theater. The falsetto style of singing that he does in that record is actually narrating a female character. But to someone who doesn't know that it's a concept album, will just hear him doing that and be like, lame, you know what I mean? Like, turn it off.
That goes back to what you said earlier about, kind of trying to fit into something and not really being open-minded about something different, because that's kind of how I was like back in the day. I would see those ridiculous hair bands singing and looking like chicks, and I was like, oh, this stuff's ridiculous. But the more I listened to it, the more I liked it, and then the kind of style of vocals and the presentation of everything actually got me listening to power metal. Who would have ever thought?
Definitely, dude. Like, yeah, I know what you're saying. When I was younger, I was like, man, that is so lame. But then you got to think at the time, dude. I mean, like they were whoever started hair metal was fed up with something and was like, I'm gonna cross dress, I get on stage and sing about Satan. You know what I mean? Like, it's really funny to me, like just thinking about like what causes people to do certain things in music. And I think it definitely served its run. But this whole like, there's bands like trying to bring hair metal back and stuff, and I just think that sometimes some stuff just needs to die and have its glory days. But
yeah, I'm a huge fan of the hair bands and stuff, but you can't do it again. If you're trying to recreate it, you're wasting your time. Like, times have changed so much. The 80s aren't kind of a carefree lifestyle way of doing things anymore.
Definitely not. And Motley Crue doing their, man, they're just, I'm not saying that you get too old to whatever, but the whole pull for Motley Crue back in the day was they were trying to appeal, they were trying to look sexy to women and like party and all that stuff, but man, it doesn't work whenever you're saggy and old, you know what I mean? Like, it just, Motley Crue doesn't work when you're old, so just stop,
Yeah, no kidding. We did an interview with Michael Rush, which is a guy that writes for our site, a couple podcasts ago, and he's like, you can't go out when you're 60 years old singing about chicks that are 16.
Yeah, you just can't do it. Stop. Like, just stop.
A couple of the things that you just keep bringing up these points that I want to ask about. As a musician, you're talking about electronic music. Like, what's your opinion on that? Because I like a lot of electronic music, especially like the '80s synth pop and stuff like,
Yeah,
and industrial like Skinny Puppy or Depeche Mode, stuff like that. A lot
yeah,
of musicians think that stuff is crap because it's not music. So I'll just get your thoughts on that.
man, I dig some of it, and I'm not trying to like, if some bands will listen to something and be like, oh, I need to add this to my band, it's not like that. It's, it's like a palate cleanser for me because sometimes whenever I'm on like these huge metal binges, sometimes it's nice to kind of listen to something else and like sometimes you get inspired by other genres of music that have nothing to do with metal, like I'll give you a good example. I'd say one of my favorite electronic records is Vicious Delicious by Infected Mushroom. Their new stuff's it's pretty good or whatever. That's just the one record by that band that I've really really dug, and it's cool. They play with a live drummer and a guitar player and stuff too, which a lot of people don't know. But there's definitely good electronic music out there, and you're gonna encounter a lot of crap before you can. It's just like metal. If you want to listen to some good metal, you don't start by listening to the radio and like like a lot of these bands that get pushed that call themselves metal that really
Like Five Finger Death Punch, everybody thinks they're like the best.
yeah. I mean, I'm not going to talk any shit on anyone. I'm just not one of those types of dude that's just going to be like, hey, well,
Oh no, I was just using them as an example of a heavier band that's played on the
yeah,
radio.
exactly. But then that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm not going to say anything too bad about anyone, but exactly, like Disturbed, man, I can't stand that band. I'm not going to say that they suck, but I'm going to say that I do not like them, and when they come on, I try to leave because I can't stand them. Like, I really can't stand the guy's voice. I can't stand the music, and I've had to tolerate a lot of a lot of Disturbed over the years. But
But we'll go back to talking about new metal for a minute since you're talking about that. Was there any like did you ever like them at any point like when they first came out?
Disturbed?
Yeah.
Well, I listened to a lot of new metal when it first came out, and what's it called? It was like their breakthrough song.
Down with the Sickness maybe?
It was on that record, but it wasn't that song.
Stupefy?
Yeah, it was. Man, like when I first heard that song, and I was just this little angry fat kid, I liked it, but man, it's just, oh man, it got so overplayed, and I got so sick of looking at that dude's face. You know what I mean? Just like, I just feel like they kind of represent a lot of things that I guess you could say bad metal stereotypes, and a lot of other bands kind of like that. I think Five Finger Death Punch is like our generation's Disturbed, kind of, like, or the new generation's Disturbed, where they're like, I don't like their music, but I'm not going to say that they're horrible, they're a bad band or anything, because
right, yeah.
They got way more fans than I do, and I'm not going to sit there and talk shit on anyone, but I will say that I'm not a fan.
Are there any of the new metal bands that you still find yourself listening to occasionally?
Yeah, I listen to all the Glory Days stuff from from time to time. It's definitely not very often, but every once in a while I'll get that nostalgia and be like, I want to listen to Follow the Leader, like.
I have like all the thousands and thousands of songs on my iPod. I have one of those iPod classics. I think it's like the most gigs you can get on one. And the other day I was like just flipping through songs. I always put it on shuffle because I like all different kinds of stuff. And right in a row, Nothing Face and Flaw came on back to back, and I'm like, holy cow, it's 1999.
Oh man, for real, dude. Like, yeah. And like I said, those, like, anytime I listen to any of that stuff, like, it's, I don't know, like when I joined Enfold Darkness, I was actually living with Elijah at the time, and we were kind of getting to know each other a little better, and I told him that I grew up and I liked Korn and stuff, and he was just like, well, that sucks because I hate that band. And I was just like, yeah. And now it's like, anytime I listen to them, it's not because I'm listening to it because it's just like awesome music or whatever, but it just reminds me of me whenever I was like, 10, Like what was going on in my life whenever, I had the kids in the neighborhood that, we were riding our bikes and stuff, and then we'd go in, and then that dude I was telling you about that my parents used to pay to like kind of babysit us or whatever was he'd be blasting Corn or Cold Chamber or whatever, and it just reminds me of those days of being younger, like I think everyone kind of has that.
I'll get your opinion on this since we're still talking about new metal. For me, like one of the downfalls of it is like you're listening to it and then you start finding these other bands. And I'll never forget when I was in high school and I found the first Dillinger Escape Plan album, and I was showing it to this metal guy I knew at school, like, hey man, check this out, and he like listens to it, and he came back the next day, he's like, yeah, it sounds like Offbeat Slipknot, and I'm like, what?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the fans that got pigeonholed into that genre, and you can translate that to today's, like you're saying, the new radio metal, whatever bands they are. I don't even listen to it, so I don't know much. But
yeah.
I think a lot of them just get pigeonholed into that, and then they don't want to expand out to actually listen to some different kinds of metal. And that's why that kind of drove me away. But then I could say the same thing for everything. It's like I never get stuck on one genre for too long.
Yeah, definitely. Well, a good example is just anytime someone's like, hey, well, what kind of genre is your band? And then I would be like, well, we'd call it technical black metal, or what I like to call black math. But sometimes people get these preconceived notions of what your music is before they've heard a note of it, And
Yeah.
that's just the world we live in. It's like people are always on express mode. They're always just filing things away inside their head under whatever tab they have that they think is related. And oftentimes your first impression will be before they even hear your band. But it's funny because you see all these kids who will actually have no idea what it is and kind of judge it and then listen to it, and they'll be like, well, that's not what I was expecting at all.
Yeah.
I mean, it's definitely evolved black metal, but it doesn't sound like Darkthrone. It doesn't sound like Mayhem. It doesn't. I think, well, at least one of our goals is to put a personal stamp on our sound. We're not trying. There's a lot of copy and paste bands out there. Anytime when new metal took off, everyone was all these people all of a sudden were doing that. And then whenever like metalcore took over, everyone was pretty guitars and mid-scream vocals and like breakdowns and stuff, and then deathcore comes, and then it's just everyone's trying to play Suffocation really shittily. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, man, but like I said, that everyone, you have to start somewhere. Like sometimes we'll play with bands, and just over the years, even with Ominous Conception and stuff like that, like we'll play with bands, and you can see that they're in copy and paste mode, but at some point they'll have potential to do some cool stuff, like.
One more question I was going to ask you, that since we were talking about you being in the Nashville area, and this is like a huge pet peeve on the show. This is the only genre that we talk crap about in almost every episode because we hate it so much, and that's that new pop bro country stuff. It's got to be like the worst excuse for music I've ever heard in my life. I mean, if you just put like dirt road and tight jeans and pickup truck, like if you just put those three words repeating in a song, you've got a hit country song. Like, well, I'm sure you're seeing that everywhere down there.
I mean, it's my favorite genre of music by far. Definitely sculpted who I am. No, but yeah, I know what you're saying. I run into a lot of these guys, but surprisingly, Nashville isn't like. You would think that country music would just be straight forced on your throat, but it's not. Nashville's awesome, man. I love living here. But yeah, it's it's just funny to me. It's kind of like if you listen to Creed. Like, I can't help but laugh when I hear it because it's just so super cheese. And just knowing that these dudes like were just all about it. You know what I mean? Whenever they were recording this, they're like, dude, this is the shit. This is it. You know what I mean? And you just think about these country guys, and like that's just what they're about, like I don't know, it's funny, like they know they're gonna go sell a shitload of records by singing about barn parties and shit, and people eat it up. It's hard for me to like bash them because I've actually met some of these types of people. Like I do ride share as another job, like with Lyft, Uber, stuff like that, which is basically where you just use your own car to be a taxi service. So oftentimes I've picked up like singer-songwriters who have sold their songs to like some serious artists. Like I picked this guy up one time who apparently has written like 4 or 5 Taylor Swift songs, and I was just like, so what's the deal? Like I'm a musician, all that stuff, and he's like, man, you know, most of these people you hear on the radio, especially these pop country artists, they don't write most of their songs. Like in a way, I kind of feel bad for them because they're kind of just like a face and a name and something to be associated with. But honestly, they're capital. You know what I mean? They're someone's paycheck, and oftentimes I feel like they're very manipulated into it's more of a work than like an artistry. Like I definitely don't think that those people are artists. I feel like it's cold calculations. You know what I mean? They're going to vocal coaches, they're getting makeup done, they have personal trainers, they are selling a look, and then someone else's songs. You know what I mean? So
we often joke that they basically just show up to a show and there's like a group of like 6 people that sit in a cubicle and pick out. They have like focus groups and take keywords and then write a song in a cubicle and then just hand it over to them.
Yeah. The funny thing is though, these guys that write these songs, I mean, they're just normal dudes, and like when I asked him like, so what's your mindset when you're writing these songs? He goes, well, I do a lot of music. I've played in jazz bands, I've played in whatever, but I make good money by putting myself in a mindset of what does a dumbass 16-year-old girl want to listen to? A girl who, grew up pretty good. Her parents have money. She gets to go to good schools. She's pretty. She gets, she doesn't really have to deal with a lot of crap. She's not in it for the art. What does she want to hear? She wants to hear that new Taylor Swift song on repeat. You know what I mean? And she wants to get all of her friends to listen to it, and they want to dance in the car. So I put myself in that mindset, and I'll crank out a number of those things, and then I'll go off by myself with my friends, and then I'll write my own music for myself. So I think moving to Nashville really gave me a new understanding for these types of people because, I don't know, it's fun to just like joke around about it and be like, oh yeah, these dudes are a bunch of jerk offs and stuff like that, and the artists are just money pots, but it's just funny. You see like good musicians writing these terrible songs, but that's the only way they get paid. You know what I mean? It's weird.
Yeah, I mean, I don't blame the songwriters or the artists or the record companies putting it up. I mean, it's all walking bankroll, as Project Pat would say. But it's money, and you can't blame that. But like from a fan's, even like not talking about a specific genre, just from a music fan, like you can just totally spot out the phoniness and like, none of them really care about anything but money.
Yeah, it's garbage. And this is another example. Do you know who Max Martin is?
No.
He pretty much wrote like every pop song in the 90s. He wrote like Backstreet Boys, like NSYNC, Britney Spears, all those people. He's like the richest dude ever, and he pretty much would just write these cheeseball ass songs over electronic music and just rake it in. It just goes to show you, like how the music industry actually works. Like the hotel I work at, one of our doormen is actually the original drummer of Counting Crows, who also played in Third Eye Blind. But he works valet at a hotel. Like, music industry will chew you up, spit you out, eat you again, and just repeat. You know what I mean? Like there's not really any money to be made. So some of these guys who, I guess were younger and like, hey, well, if I'm going to make money in this thing, I got to write some bullshit songs. Personally, I'd like to think of myself as more of an artist, more of a person who's not concerned, who's not wanting to put a price tag on a lot of these things. And if I'm not making a living off music, I'm going to find other means to make it happen. Like, I've been cooking for the same amount of times that I've been playing drums, and because it's just another art form, and I can actually make a living at it. So, if your goal isn't to be an artist, isn't to do it for the reasons that me and I think most guys in metal bands, and any type of underground music do it, then yeah, then by all means go write some bubblegum pop and get a paycheck. But you know, not all of us are out to do that.
Yeah, I think it's a kind of a snapshot of stupidity of society too. I mean, I'm not talking, kind of music you want to listen to because anybody can listen to anything and that's cool. But I've actually talked to people that are fans of this country pop stuff, and I'll say, hey, why don't you listen to, George Jones? And they're like, who?
Yeah, yeah.
Or some of the newer stuff like Sturgill Simpson. We're huge Sturgill Simpson fans, and like I talk to people who know everybody on the radio, but they don't know who that is.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying, man. Like, I actually like outlaw country, man. Like,
Yeah.
I'm a big Hank 3 fan. He actually like lives right down the road from me. But like outlaw country was death metal to a lot of people, if you know what I mean. Like, if you're getting
I totally agree.
outlaw country was awesome. You know what I mean? Like when it first came out, like, and you lived in like Tennessee, Arkansas, somewhere, shit was cool, and it's still pretty cool. It's not necessarily my cup of tea. I get pretty burnt out pretty quick. I definitely think metal is the only genre I've ever been able to consistently listen to and never get tired of it. But to some people, that's outlaw country.
You played plenty of shows and you've been to plenty of concerts, but let's focus more on the shows you actually have played. Have you had any Spinal Tap moments or been part of any?
Yeah, I died a couple weeks ago at the Origin show. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, there's definitely always something. Nothing ever goes according to plan, but you just kind of try to make the best of any of those situations. Like actually, that Origin show, there was just some shit going on with my equipment, and I couldn't figure it out before we started playing, so I just started playing, and I had to adjust like as we were going, and man, I hate it, but at the same time, you got to do it,
All right, last question. List your 5 most influential bands or artists, and just give quick reasons why on each of them.
Obviously, Opeth, man, love them. Can't say enough about them. A lot of people will, say their new music's garbage, but I still like it. I see what they're doing. They're just older. They're more mature. They're doing their thing, and they have the liberty to be able to do that. But obviously, Blackwater Park, Ghost Reverie, Still Life, all the old stuff, man. Like that really, really took music to a whole new level for me. Old school, man. I'm gonna have to say Led Zeppelin too. Not just because of the time that they lived in, and I just think that their story is very inspirational. Seeing how those guys were able to execute the music that they were playing at that time is awesome to me. How they dealt with their with the fame and all that stuff. That's a lot of stuff that people overlook. But overall, I think that their music is really, really good. Like that's just a personal thing for me. And then I would definitely say Dimmu Borgir. They were one of the first black metal style bands. Them and Cradle of Filth were definitely two bands that I thought just absolutely nailed bringing their musical vibes and imagery live, to stage. And even when they didn't have a very big budget, they're very serious. And I know a lot of metal elitists will bash them, and it's not real black metal. And
oh yeah, I've got my share of that.
Yeah, I mean, you want to get real and you want to talk real black metal, then you're talking about basically the worship of like 16-year-old kids in Norway who were pissed off, didn't have a budget, and wrote some songs in some really dark chords. I mean, like I'm not bashing it by any means, but these people who like put them up on a pedestal and act like, if you don't sound like that, then you're not real. And I'm just like, screw you, man. Because
Let me jump in real quick, especially with Dimmu Borgir. My favorite album from there is a Storm Blast, and that's pretty lo-fi, and it's one of those originals, and I consider it one of the original black metal albums.
that is an incredible record, man. There's not any Dimmu Borgir records I don't like, and that's why I say, that's why I put them there, because there's a lot of bands I really really like, or I'll really like one record or some songs off a record, but consistently have put out exceptional records. And then were you going to say anything about them?
Oh no, I totally agree. One thing I'll add, actually, that I just now thought about, they're kind of one of the first black metal bands to bring that aura kind of around in that atmosphere that you would hear, because they had the synthesizer keyboard. They just had this ambient to it. I can't really say the same for like Cradle of Filth. I was really getting into Emperor at the time, and they were kind of not really that way either. But Dimmu Borgir definitely put that aura around them while you're listening to it.
Yeah, man, I'd definitely say if you're gonna listen to Cradle of Filth, you got to be pretty selective. I think Danny Filth is, I guess, I mean, he still is, but when Danny Filth was in his prime, I think that he was like the best black metal vocalist I've ever heard, just because like the lyrics and his range, man, it's just like inhuman, like how he can go from it's almost like rapping fast, all these very well thought out lyrics, and then in the same breath go into a howl. It's like I don't understand how his voice worked, especially like Midian and Damnation in a Day, and like some of the older stuff. Really, like kind of like their breakthrough albums. When he was touring off of that stuff, he was like in his prime. Even if you watch live videos, I mean, the dude's just got some pipes. You know what I mean?
Yeah, From the Cradle to Enslave was the first album I picked up of that, and then Cruelty and the Beast was the next one after that. So that was kind of my first two big ones, which those are way, way back. But, I mean, I remember going to Stick It in Your Ear and picking up like an imported copy of Dark Fairy Tales in Palestine and paid like $35 for it because you couldn't get it anywhere at the time, and I was so obsessed.
Dude, yeah, I mean, even like Dusk and Her Embrace, I mean,
Yeah.
like, if you like that really dark, minimal production, and man, like that's actually one of my favorite Cradle of Filth albums, start to finish, just because like, man, they nailed it, dude. It's just that dark, erotic, like imagery they were going for. I mean, like the woman on the cover, and just the well thought out, like, I don't know, it's just you just gotta, if you're not familiar with it, just read it. You don't even have to listen to it. Just there's some lyric videos on there and stuff, but I think a lot of metal bands overlook lyrics, and they're just like, oh, we'll just talk about fucking cutting people up, whatever, Whenever a band, Dimmu Borgir, Cradle of Filth, stuff like that, they'll just while we're on the topic of them, I think those two bands had excellent execution. And that's actually one of the reasons I wanted to join Enfold Darkness, was because, man, like the lyrics that Matt Brown writes are just like out of this world. Like, if you haven't read the lyrics for Our Cursed Rapture, like, probably won't understand what I'm saying, but just check them out, and like you'll see what I'm talking about, man. It's just like it's so well thought out, and it matches the music so well that it just adds this whole new element to it. But I guess I'll get back on track. I'd say my next band is definitely Behemoth. Behemoth definitely was. I'd say it's probably one of my favorite death metal bands. If not,
I'll cut you off real quick. You could almost throw Behemoth in with the other two bands we were just talking about. I don't think I'm as big of a fan of theirs, just because I don't think maybe the range of styles. It just seems like they're heavier. They're one of the heaviest black metal bands there is, I think. But they don't have that. They kind of give me they give me more of a metal feel than they do the atmosphere of the black metal. Does that make sense?
Definitely, and that's actually one of the reasons that I love Behemoth so much, is because of that like barbaric, like, I don't know, man. It's just like when you hear it, like, especially like I think my first favorite record by Behemoth. I mean, I'd been listening to them before, but my first favorite record that I could not stop listening to was Demigod.
Yep.
Man, that first song, dude, Sculpting the Throne of Seth, like blew my mind. Like, first of all, the drums sound like fucking World War II, just insane. And then you got Nurgle's vocals over it that just sounds, I mean, sounds like he's summoning ancient barbarians from
I
hell. You
think
know what I mean?
I
Like
think
it's insane.
his vocals are probably some of the best in the modern black metal there is.
Yeah, no doubt. And then I'd say that record set a certain standard for me with death metal and black metal and stuff like that. And then they ever since they've put that record out, I feel like they've just nonstop put out good records. Like Apostasy, man, I love that record. Evangelion, I love that record. Dude, their new record is really good. You just like a lot of diehard Behemoth fans will sit here and be like, well, they're getting chill, getting old, but man, like it is definitely not a bad thing to not put the same record out 10 times. Like,
I totally agree with that.
yeah, it's just a lot of people will do it, especially a lot of these deathcore bands. They'll, we'll start this song off with this, and then we'll go into some what I call cheap blast beats, which aren't real. Whenever it's just snare and kicks, and then you're going just like you're hitting the hi-hat like on the ones and just like not really blasting, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah.
And then it's stopped vocal hook breakdown, like it's a formula, and I feel like it's very, very used up. I'm not saying there's not good deathcore bands out there, but I'm just saying, like, if you write music in formulas of that have already existed with other bands, then it's just kind of, I don't know, man. It's just definitely not my style, But
I'll get back to Behemoth real quick. That's again one of those bands that started out with that really lo-fi production and just kind of kept going and kept going and kept going, and eventually look what they became, just like Cradle of Filth and Dimmu Borgir.
Well, yeah, I mean, a lot of people don't really understand that, like, the importance of production to certain bands, like, because a song starts off in your head, and the way you hear it in your head, you want to, like, translate that to as many people as you can to at least understand, like, your intentions. And I think whenever you can get with a producer who can, like Jamie King is a great example. Like, whenever you're working with him and you're like, hey, so this right here, this is kind of the sound I'm going for. I don't know if you can, if you can exactly do it. And then bam, he just nails it. You know what I mean? Like, like when I told him, I was like, I don't want everything to sound like typewritery and how a lot of these metal bands it sounds like just Superior drummer. Like, I want it to be like my real drums, Like, obviously, I trigger my kicks and stuff just because whenever you're playing this fast and in a live setting, which trust me, I've played without triggers forever, and people just can't seem to hear the kicks. Like, if you're playing a show and the sound system isn't very good, you can kick till the heads break, and still, like, it's going to get drowned out by the bass and the guitars and the vocals. Like, it's going to happen. So the triggering thing, that's more of just that's a live thing that you make sacrifices to make your sound. But whenever you're messing with a producer and you actually want a certain sound and they can execute it, it's a godsend for a band who's spent years writing this record. That's why I understand how a lot of bands can just record it with a shitty mic and just throw it out there, because I think you got to take some time into that stuff. Like, it's to me, it's almost like, I haven't had kids yet, so I'm like, it's kind of like my baby. I want it to be the way I want it to be, and I want to nurture it and make it into something great.
Going back to Behemoth again, I think it also has to do with progression. Look at their style that they started out with. It was kind of more of that old school black metal, and then, like, as they progressed, not only did the production get better, but their style they kept adding something else every single time.
And coming from a musician, it's very easy to get bored playing anything. So I think that whenever you're trying to write and be creative, that a lot of people get mad when bands kind of go off and do weird stuff that they want to do. But you don't have to listen to it, you know what I mean? Like, I think that whenever you're writing and you feel inspired to play something, that you shouldn't shy away from doing it just because you think that someone else won't like it. If you like it, put it on the record, you know what I mean? And if people don't like it, whatever, you're probably not going to make money doing this anyway. So you just might as well put out what you want to put out and be happy with it and satisfy your own ego first, because if you're proud of it, then I feel like other people will like it. But if you're just going through the motions, copy paste, I'll put this here because this will get the crowd moving, whatever. That'll take you a certain, it'll take you some places. But I think to be truly happy as a musician, you really gotta care about what you're doing and stay interested and stay inspired.
All right, so before we close the show, the platform's yours. You got anything else you want to say? And then make sure you get all your Twitter, Facebook, all that good stuff out.
Yeah, man. It's been a long time coming, this new Enfold Darkness record. Some people have voiced, their opinion of how it should have been out a long time ago. But, a lot of people don't see the behind-the-scenes stuff. And, before I was in the band, they had already been dealing with some of the stuff. And, we don't want to put out a record that we're not proud of. So if in the writing process we encountered some stuff that after playing it and listening to the demos that we recorded and stuff, and we were like, man, I really think that we should change this part or change this. And we formulated this album to all be very proud of it, and it's to the point now where it's about to be ready for release, and we couldn't be happier. So keep an eye out for that thing. It should be out, like early summer.
Hey, I do have a quick question on that. Are you guys going to have vinyl or cassette tapes?
We're definitely hoping so. It all depends for what the budget allows. Because
I know that stuff's expensive to make, but I had to ask.
Yeah, one of the reasons it's taken us so long is just because we don't have a lot of money. We're all regular dudes who work regular jobs, and we're trying to put something out that we're going to be really proud of. So just sometimes it just takes a lot of money. I know I've had to drop thousands of dollars on drum equipment, because I'm not sponsored by Sabian or anything like that. I got to hook up with Axis, and I did have a drum endorsement through Shine Custom Drums, but they went out of business. So I got Axis right now, which I'm very proud to be representing them. But it just it takes time and takes a lot of money and stuff like that. But get on if you guys get on Facebook, we're on there. It's just facebook.com/Enfold Darkness. We got a YouTube. You get a lot of old stuff up there. We got some videos from our Cursed Rapture, some lyric videos and stuff like that. There's definitely gonna be a lot of updates coming out soon. We're gonna be putting out pre-production tracks and stuff like that. But just keep your ear ready for it. And I know you guys have been waiting a while and stuff, but it'll be out pretty soon. We got a Twitter, we got Instagram, we got all that stuff. But yeah, man, I think that I don't know, man. I just think that it's going to be an awesome feeling when this thing's finally out.
Do you have an estimated date release for that?
Well, really, it's all up to the label, which we're not really allowed to be disclosing.
Right. Yeah. I understand that.
So really, it's up to them. It's up to a lot of people that aren't just us. If it was us, we'd already just be putting it out.
Is it going to be sometime in 2015?
Yeah. I mean,
okay.
I'm hoping it's going to be really, really soon. But I mean, it's already recorded and everything. We just gotta get the stuff. I'll get all the ducks in a row and all the stuff dealing with all the people who didn't write the record, who are just concerned about all the logistics of it.
Okay. You got anything else you want to throw out there for anything?
Well, I mean, thanks for having me on, man. It's been fun, and it's always great just getting to talk music and stuff like that. Like I said, we're up Facebook, Instagram, all that stuff, and then my other band, Ominous Conception, we're same thing. We got some stuff up on YouTube. We got Facebook. All that good stuff, and I'm just, kind of working on some stuff, some solo stuff, and always just trying to stay busy with music as I can. But yeah, man, thanks for having me on, and I hope this kind of got you guys in my head a little bit.
Yeah, this one's been so long and so crazy. We're gonna have to make this like two. I'm gonna have to split this into like a 2-part. So this is awesome.
Yeah, I talk a lot, so it's whatever.
Hey, that's what we do. We're here to talk about music and talk about all different kinds of music, and I think we've covered quite a bit tonight. So, thanks everybody for listening. Greg, thanks for coming on. See you guys later.
Yeah, thanks, bud.
All right, we want to thank Greg Vance again from Enfold Darkness for giving us the time to do the interview with him. Guys, we're hopefully going to have a lot more interviews like this down the road. please stay tuned. Please support the show. Spread the word. Tell people about our Facebook page. Tell people about Twitter, and have everyone subscribe to YouTube. We got a lot of cool things lined up down the road for everybody that supports the show. We're going to give back. So until next time, stay true. See ya.